Here's me with my tangled up earphones in the car.
There we are.
And Alan driving. Look at that.
Look
Very
at that.
professional
Essentially,
driving.
this is looking a little bit like some sort of challenge Annika situation at the moment.
It is.
But
It is.
the challenge being for you to get home in time to join us from there.
It is. My mum's just texted to say that she needs some shopping from Asda later on. So,
Right. Fair enough.
I hope
Fair enough.
that's showbiz. Yeah. So I'm on the road, guys. Hello, studio.
Excellent. Yeah, so welcome everybody to this evening's. What is this evening, Erica? Can you describe it?
Well, I forgot to give her a title. It's a mini con celebrating 60 years of Doctor Who, celebrating fans like us, celebrating all the friendships we've made through Doctor Who, through that lovely program that was invented 60 years ago. It's why I've got a husband. We met at a Doctor Who group. And I've met some of the best people in my life through Doctor Who. So we're celebrating that tonight.
Who says being a nerd keeps you a virgin?
Well, no.
No, not me.
Exactly.
Not me.
No.
Exactly.
So what I'll do then, as I have a handy list, my clipboard in front of me. I'll run through the programs tonight, and if we just have a quick chat about them, and then at 6:30 is our first one, which is a panel, which is 35 years of the greatest show in the galaxy.
Yeah. So that's going to be exciting because there's going to be there's a musical coming out, which I hope Paul knows that because he's doing the interview.
Really?
I'm sure Mr. Gard will tell you all about it, but there is a musical coming out on The Greatest Show, and it's reunited all the cast. So it's coming out in December.
Right.
So Chris Gard will tell you all about that. Chris Jory's in it as well, so we've got the two Chris's for that panel. So that should be a great laugh.
So no need to tune anywhere else. That's going to be happening on this stream. So all you need to do is just keep watching, which is easy to do. You just need to do nothing. That's coming up straight next. There'll be a special announcement afterwards, which we can't say anything about until after the panel's finished. Then 7:30 interview with Colin Spall.
Yay!
So for the uninitiated, who is Colin Spall?
Colin Spall is actually he was a child actor, and he played Noddy. Is that right, Al? He played Noddy in.
I didn't know that. That's brilliant.
Noddy's Adventures. This is great. We're going down a little bit of road. He was in the classic series, Revelations of the Daleks, playing Lilth, and he was also Mr. Crane in the new series, both directed by Graham Harper. He was good. He was at I think Italia Conte with Graham Harper.
That's right. That's where they met. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to talking to Colin because he's one of the very few actors who's done classic and new Who. So to actually look at the changes in television, even in that time, I think it'll be fascinating. And also, you know what, from Revelation of the Daleks, when I watched that. That's a good, strong piece of drama. That doesn't feel like a show that was, as we were being told, was worthy of cancellation. So I want to know what it was like on the studio floor there, and did they have that feeling, or was it just a very happy ship? I suspect the latter. So I'm going to be doing some digging on that. I think. Yes.
And to work with the director, I think he did like 40 years in total on Doctor Who, wasn't it? The chap that directed it all.
Graham Harper.
Graham Harper. Yeah. I mean, he changed everything the way Who was done, wasn't it, with the Cave Sandrazani? So
absolutely, Graham Harper. I mean, he comes from this lovely descent of directors. Graham Harper starts in the industry working alongside Douglas Camfield, who is an absolute legend of a director, of course. But that lovely relationship that Colin and Graham have, you're right. It dates right back to the Italia Conti, and so. Yeah, I think a fascinating career on one that's going to be lovely to explore.
And he's a good friend of Hu and Hoylake. He's been to a few of our conventions over the years, and we've had a few sherbets with him, and he's great fun. Really is.
Lovely. Then 8 p.m. Doctor Who's Line, combining Doctor Who with improv. Another thing which arguably would keep you a virgin, but hasn't. So that'll be if you like Whose Line Is It Anyway, and if you like Doctor Who, then watch that later. We've got an amazing panel for that.
We've got a great cast for that.
Yes. And then at 9 p.m., the man who's literally in the driving seat for you now, Alan Lear, will be interviewing Mark Strickson, who played Turlo.
So Alan hasn't got the earphones, so he can't speak, but he can mime something. So
that's great. He's only got one hand free. He did mime, and he just didn't do that. That's what I'd have done.
So but basically, what they're going to talk about season 20. Alan was forced to watch it, and Mark was in it, so they're going to have a little chat about that. If Mark can get away from work, so it's about 50-50 where that goes ahead. It should do. It should do. But,
excellent. Yeah. So I've got to say as well tonight, I'm going to be sticking around all night on production duties, so I'll be popping viewer comments up on screen. So this from Liz Whitmore, who says she's very good at just doing nothing on our early instruction of you don't need to do anything, just sit there. So Liz is all right. She's covered.
Good, Liz.
Got to say as well that for some reason, some of these come through as just Facebook users, so it doesn't always pop your name up. Somebody just put Graham doing classic and new Who. If you put your name, if you put your name after your comment, then we'll guarantee you get a shout out. Or if you put your name after any questions you may have for anyone on tonight as well. So we are just we've got 1 minute until the first panel starts. I see Mr. Chris Jury is waiting in the wings. And he's ready to kick off. Anything else we need to add before we start tonight?
No, just thank you to Alex for doing all this. I've nagged the life out of him all day.
And what? I hardly noticed.
And asked him the most stupid questions. So essentially, I've been his pseudo wife all day.
I worked on the phones at Amigo Loans for 4 years. I fear nothing. So.
So we're ready to interview. I'll give Mr. Guard a nudge, but if we've got Mr. Jury, I'm happy with that.
As soon as Mr. Guard appears, I'll pop him in. So me and Erica will be disappearing off screen. Mr. Chris Jury will then be appearing on screen, and he's all yours, Paul.
Off we go then. Thank you very much.
We'll see you all.
See you later. And here we go. Chris Jury, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm very, very well. Thank you. Very, very well.
Oh, wonderful. It's lovely. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. That's lovely. We also have another Chris. We have Chris Guard, who should be joining us quite soon as well.
Okay. Good.
Lovely. So, well, I mean, whilst I have you on your own, can we do a little bit of a potted history and go right back in time? So, when in your life did drama become something that meant something to you?
It always had been. I loved television when I was growing up. I didn't have a particularly happy childhood, and television really took me to other places. It wasn't for a lot of people in the business, it was movies at that time. It was cinema that did it for them, but for me it was telly.
Right.
And I watched a lot and I loved it. And drama was a big part of it. I mean, I was the generation who was a kid when the show started, Doctor Who started.
Yeah.
And I have a very, very vivid memory of literally being behind the sofa. In the very early 60s with I think it was the Daleks.
Yes.
But the music would scare us, I mean, it was terrifying just hearing the music. Because I was born in 56, so I was definitely, able to remember when it came on Doctor Who, and it had I really remember it very well.
Yeah.
And then I really watched a lot of drama. Television drama was really the stuff for me. So I wanted to be a vet.
Oh, right.
Spend my life with me hand up a cow's bum, as it were. But you needed very, very good science A levels to do it. So I started doing science A levels.
Right.
But I'd also joined a youth theatre by then. And,
right.
And it turned out I could act.
Right.
And I didn't know that before then. I was quite a nerdy little kid.
Okay.
And I had
what was it like? What was your youth theatre like? Was it lots of improvisation and device?
No. I mean, we did do all of that.
Yeah.
It was my youth theatre was in a place called Kenilworth in Warwickshire, and it was the Priory Youth Theatre. And when we went there, I went to an all boys grammar school.
Right.
And we were told that there were loads of girls at this youth theatre.
I see.
So we went. So we thought, well, we've got to give that a go.
Yeah.
So we went to this youth theatre, and it happened to be the auditions for the youth theatre did a play in the main house every year, and they the day we went, which we didn't realise at all, but the day we went was the auditions for that show. So we auditioned for it, you know, we're there, we might as well. We auditioned for it and we got in it.
Right. What was that first show?
And it was Antigone by Jean Anouilh.
Wow. And how old would you have been when you encountered Antigone?
15.
That must have been quite remarkable.
And my part was called the First Guard. But it was the comedy relief, you know.
Yeah.
In the show. And we did the show and I stole all the reviews.
Right.
So Antigone and Creon were bloody furious. They were 3 years older than me, and they were bloody furious because this bloke who'd appeared from nowhere and was only playing the First Guard stole all the reviews. Now this was a big moment in my life because suddenly I could do something.
So did you realize then that you actually have that potential to turn this into something that you could do long term?
No, because I was determined to be a vet.
Still determined, right? Okay.
But as I say, I started doing my science A-levels, and I very, very quickly, within several weeks, realised that if I carried on, I wouldn't get any A-levels, let alone the A-levels relevant to getting to be a vet.
Yes.
And I remember very clearly the moment, because I just went, well, I'm going to have to change to the arts.
Right.
And then I went, oh, and if I did that, I could pursue something to do with this drama thing that I'd found in this youth theatre.
Right. Okay.
So I did. I completely changed subjects, went and did arts. And then, you know, I chose to go to university because they had a television studio there. My dream was to be a television director.
Right.
Not really an actor, but everywhere I went, the acting seemed to be the thing. When I went to uni.
So when you went off to university, I mean, by that point, it was solidified for you that you were going to work definitely within the arts. Had anybody in your family taken this direction before, or were you the first to do this?
Now, this is interesting because my dad was a plumber from Coventry.
Right.
But my mum, who was a factory worker's daughter, during the war her and her two twin sisters had been in a like a little Andrews Sisters singing group and dancing group in the clubs around Cov. And my mum was always in Amdram all her life.
Yeah.
So she I never, you know, you're not going to go with your mum, it's too embarrassing, and I went because there were girls, but in fact, you know, so yes, through my mum, there was always that aspect of it.
Yes.
And so she was very proud, of course, when, you know, oh, here he is.
Oh, hello. Here we go.
You're finally here. What time
So I've just sprinted about 400 meters down the road. I suddenly saw the time. It's not like me to be late, but better than being dead. Hello, Chris. How are you?
Hello, mate. How are you? Good to see you.
Are you finding plenty of things to bullshit about?
Yes, well, I'm bullshitting away marvelously here.
Okay.
Well, I shouldn't be the judge of that, should I? But
well, yes, I think you should really. Can you just give me half a second, because I'm just going to get myself a glass of beer.
Certainly.
Yeah. Oh, hello. So
hello. Hi, Chris. I'm Paul.
Oh, hello, Paul. Yes, yes.
Hello.
Sorry, I very rudely to ignore you.
That's absolutely fine.
Yeah, no. Okay, Erica didn't make it clear.
Ah, right. Sorry about that.
You just need to get. I can't see you very big on here, but maybe that doesn't matter.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Look, beer first.
Go for it.
All right.
That's absolutely fine. This is one thing I wanted to talk about in a little bit, Chris. There seems to be this wonderful family atmosphere behind the Doctor Who that you were in. Are you still all in contact? And was that something?
Well, we are all still in contact because of things like this.
Yes.
But yes, it was one of those gigs. I mean, you know, acting is often like, you know, people sometimes think that, well, they'll often think actors are wankers, don't they? But one of the reasons they often think actors are wankers is because we don't see each other for 20 years. And then when we meet, we're like, oh, darling, how are you? And all of that. But it's actually genuine.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the intensity of actually rehearsing up and doing a gig is so intense that the relationships are much deeper. You know, if you work with somebody for 6 or 8 weeks normally, it's just a passing relationship.
Yeah.
But when you're actually doing a play or a telly, sometimes it can be so intense that actually these relationships do form.
Yes.
And in fact, I hadn't seen Chris for years and years.
Yes, you have.
Well, I am now. But,
when was that? I think the last time was up in the Wirral, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say, that I hadn't seen you and for years and years and years. And then Erica and Alan organised Who on the Wirral, and they got Sophie up and loads of us, and it was incredible because we walked into the room and talking to each other as if we'd seen each other last week. It was
and of course, although you did your bit remotely in the audio thing we've just done, I mean, it all went full circle again, because there's Dee, there's Ian. I mean, I've not seen Ian literally since we did that show.
Yeah.
And it was just fucking amazing. And there he is singing my bloody songs. I'm going like, what is going on? And that show is just sent to curse us, I think, really. There is no escape.
No. I see Otis quite a lot because I did a theatre play with him.
Okay.
His name is Ian Reddington, but during the show we called him Otis.
Oh, why's that?
Otis Reddington.
Right.
So we called him Otis, and I still call him Otis. And but we've got a thing going now that when we're at signing photos, I always do my signature over his face.
Right.
And then
you bastard.
He'll do it over my face, and then people they're saying, Ian, someone comes up to me at a thing that he's not at, and they'll say, Ian sends his love, he signed this.
Yeah.
It's really not a little vibe going on. So yeah.
Yeah, good. That sounds very, very good. Yeah. Fantastic. Right. Yeah. Well, I was doing one of these Zoomy things on Monday with a bloke who was based in San Francisco for a site called Timescales. And oh God, he was so nice. I don't know how many Californians you've worked with, Chris. You must have worked with loads, but
no, very few.
Okay, but there's something about that San Francisco vibe of, like, you know, high intelligence, very warm, very respectful, thoughtful, and loads of other stuff. He was just it was just a joy to chat with him, and you know, rabbit on about, I don't know, about loads of stuff to do with me, you know, the ego, darling, and all the and my books and all the rest of the shit. But it was very enjoyable, not least because he's married to a Japanese woman, and they have twin daughters. They're 8 years old, and I said, oh, are they identical? He said, no, one of them looks exactly like me, which is European, and the other one looks exactly like his wife, who's Japanese.
Oh, that's good.
Oh.
So I mean, that is just so cool. You wouldn't even know they were related, you know.
Wow.
Anyway, apropos of nothing, like most things in life, yeah.
Well, that's quite all right. But we were just saying just before, Chris, that the show seems to have this real sense of family about it. And there's all these lovely stories we know. So, for example, traveling down to the quarry, and suddenly there was a bit of a jamming session on the coach and things like that.
I don't remember that at all. I think that's a load of bollocks.
Oh,
I do not remember that. I do remember the musicality of the cast and how we all sort of, you know, it was Jessica who said, you know, why don't we write a song around this show? Because there was all this extra sort of talent flying around the edges of it. But I personally, and
Jessica would impersonate everyone.
Oh my God! Yeah. Well, okay, so we got Jan Samarco. He was the last person to come on board, right?
Yeah.
I was Barnaby's go-between, and Jan, you know, he has a completely different job. He left the business after a few years. And we talked and talked and talked. It was so lovely, and I can't remember why I'm saying this. But Jan is so, I can't really remember why I'm here at all. But Jan is absolutely.
Who are you?
Bye.
Get off. Go on. Bugger off.
I'll see you in 20 years' time. No. Jan, he was just so nice and very serious. And he remembered all about the music we discussed. And you know, he was making music. He was a musician. But all the songs he wrote, he said, I remember at the time he said, what do you think of this? And it was a cassette tape, and all the songs on it were like his version of punk. It was like techno punk. And there was one called Fuck Off. The next one was called Fuck. And then there was the next one was called like What the Fuck? You know, he said, what do you think of this? I'll go like, right up my street. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, right. So we have a comment. Somebody is loving Christopher Jury's distinguished facial hair there.
Thank you.
The moustache. Is that waxed, Chris?
It is. It is waxed.
Excellent.
There's something vaguely disturbing about the way you said that, but yeah, I don't quite know why. But yes, of course it is. Yes.
Excellent. Can I ask you both? There's certain things that to people like me.
So we're live. We're live, are we?
Oh, we are live. Yes.
Oh, blimey. Okay. Do you mind if I just do a few press-ups first?
Can I ask you about rehearsals? Because these days, from what I understand in the industry, rehearsal is something of the past. It tends not to happen in television anyway. How important, with something like The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, how important was that rehearsal process for you? And have you got any memories of the Acton Hilton? Because words like that to me are just nectar, you know.
Yeah. I did 2 or 3 things. You only had rehearsal for studio stuff, and the rehearsal really wasn't for the cast. The advantage was the cast got to rehearse, but in fact it was for the director to put the multi-camera camera script together. That's really why you were doing it.
Yeah.
And but it was a great bonding experience. And I always tell this story because at the very first read through of the thing, Chris Gard. Hello. You went absolutely bananas in your.
I was waiting to see what adjectival noun you chose.
Yeah.
Okay.
You went crazy.
Did I?
And yeah, in your performance. and I spoke to you about it afterwards, and I learned a lot from this, because you said to me you said to me, in a show like Doctor Who, if you don't go for it at the beginning, you'll never get there.
Okay.
And that was in fact my experience, because I was actually very disappointed in my performance in Greatest Show in the Galaxy. Because that was my feeling as well, Chris, when I first saw you underperforming it. And I tried to get around the back of a pole to say, no, don't say that. You were great. You were playing a particular, I mean. I know, but I learned. Firstly, there is a thing about read-throughs that somehow got, because I subsequently became a television director, and I hated it when actors in the read-through didn't do a performance, because the reason as a reader, the reason as a director you want to hear the read-through is get some sense of what it's going to be like. And if everybody's just sitting on it for the read-through, it's like, for fuck's sake. So I then started, after working with you, Chris, to give my all in the read-through.
Thank you.
And in fact, on one occasion, because of adopting that strategy, I'd got one episode of a show. It was the first episode of a show, and I went in and did the character in the read-through, and they gave me 5 more episodes. I did all 6 in the series.
Yeah, I think there was a kind of thing that started to happen, during the 60s and 70s, when it all got a little bit methody. So you were signaling what you were probably going to do later. Can you just do it? Give me an idea of what you're actually going to do.
What you're going to do, for Christ's sake.
But then I'd also been through those sort of, I Claudius's and Duchess of Duke Streets and all those, where you were actually rehearsing at Northampton very much like you would for a stage play. And then after a week or 10 days, the tech guys all come in and they get ready to push the Daleks around at TBC in this extraordinary way of recording. And I think often it worked great. I mean, even things like Fawlty Towers, alongside I Claudius, were made in that way. Not how we're able to do it now. Fix it in the mix. So it put the pressure firmly on the actors to actually, get on and deliver it. I think when that Doctor Who came up, I think I'd been doing quite a lot of like, oh, I'm so pale and interesting. Bring the camera towards me because I'm so fascinating, as opposed to just saying, yeah, fuck shit. But that's what the great film actors can do, like Jack Nicholson, people like that. They know how to be big, small, and small, big. And it's such a genius kind of craft,
Is there an acting style that sort of sets Doctor Who aside? I mean, it does have to be sort of heightened but believable still, doesn't it? How do you judge that? How do you judge that as actors were to pitch the performance?
That's a great question. You can answer it, Chris.
Well, I'll give your answer that you gave me at the time, which was no, seriously, you did what you said, and I don't think you were telling me how to act. We were talking about it, but I've never forgot you saying was that you have to act as if it's really happening.
Yeah.
So, because one of the dangers of fantasy and Doctor Who and science fiction is that you forget that what you're portraying is a real human being, but in these extraordinary situations.
Yeah.
And so that I'm not sure that it's true that you need to be heightened.
Right.
I think.
Here's a good example. The wonderful Kenneth Colley, who I worked with on Return to Treasure Island a couple of years before we did that Doctor Who. And I played for 5 months on screen, on film, all over the world, opposite Brian Blessed. And everyone's going like, oh yeah, Brian Blessed, he's that, no, he's not. He's not though. He's very zen. And if you want to pull him down, that huge energy the quieter it is, kind of the more exciting and more intense it is. So there's a very good example of, and I remember Ken Colley coming over to me. You know, I had all this lion's share of the stuff, and I'm playing a Juve lead, trying to be sort of real. And Ken came over to me and he said, just do it. He said, just do it, just act. He said, don't listen to Piers. This was the illustrious, wonderful Piers Haggard. But Piers would get very involved in the background to why you were there, what, you know, and basically, if you're just, all you've got to do is ride a horse, you know, and stop it on a sixpence in front of a camera and then say, hey, it doesn't really matter whether your father was a candlestick maker in 18th century England or not. Yeah. So basically, Ken was he just said, and Piers was one of the most famous directors of the time in TV, and Ken he'd come over, he goes, and he'd worked with him several times. He said, don't listen to Piers.
Yes. Yeah.
Don't listen to the great director, you know.
Yeah. So
just do something.
Yeah. And I'm, you know, I think you need, when I say real, I don't necessarily mean subdued at all, because I've done a lot of thinking about this, and when I first the very first job I ever did was in a thing called Maybury, which was 4 or 5 years before I did Doctor.
I remember it. Yeah.
And a long story, but I knew through university Anthony Minghella, and Minghella left teaching at Hull the year I left, and he went and became a script editor on Maybury, and he said he got me this little job. And we'd never done any television training or discussed it at all, but along the way I picked up the idea from somewhere that you did very little, do nothing. I'd picked up the idea. So I got this telly job, so I did nothing. And then when it came out, I went, well, I'm never fucking doing that again.
Exactly.
Because I looked as if I was dead. I looked as if I was on sort of on Mogadon or something, because it's just bloody nonsense.
Well, that's what Ken said. He said, no one can see your thoughts.
Yeah.
I mean,
the technical reason for that, by the way, is that in the close-up, you don't have any body language. You only have your face. So although the camera is close to you, 80% of perception of human communication is non-verbal. And a huge amount of that is coming from stance, arm movements, gestures.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All of that. And in close-up, it's all not there. So if you do nothing, which I did, you're literally doing nothing.
Yeah.
And it was a disaster. And I just said, well, I'm not doing that again.
For me, I mean, because Greatest Show in the Galaxy, I was probably precisely the right age to watch it. I think I was 12 when it went out. And for me, as a viewer,
I was emotionally about 12.
Right. For me, as a viewer, I still remember Bellboy's death as being an absolutely chilling moment, and it was this lovely coming together, I think, of your performance, Chris, playing the absolute horror of that moment and not holding back, alongside Alan Waring's direction as he moves the camera slowly away, and the camera encounters our chief clown with one of his little flourishes. It was just this, I think it's a remarkable sequence, but the show seems to be absolutely full of those. And the most remarkable thing about that is it was such a troubled production after all the fun of location, wasn't it? Because suddenly we encounter the dreaded asbestos.
It was perfect. We were sort of troubled people, troubled people in a troubled world. Yeah.
But it wasn't horrible for us. It was bloody marvelous. We got paid twice for a start off.
Right.
We went out of our original contract, and then they had to hire us again to do the stuff. Then we had to do it in the tent at Elstree, which was fantastic. It was beautiful. Do you remember the weather, Chris? It was absolutely beautiful.
The weather was fantastic. I remember my old friend Richard Gibson, right, who was in the go-between with my brother and hadn't really done much subsequently and was thinking of leaving the business. And then he got cast as Herr Flick in Allo Allo. And therefore he's such a great guy and very witty, and he'd so become a sort of, and he's driving in his open top car through the gates of Elstree Film Studios, you know, and they're making EastEnders there as well. And Richard spent a lot of his time trying to get on the set of EastEnders, driving the AFM completely nuts, because he wanted to appear in the background of an EastEnders.
In the
and that's everyone would go, what the fuck's it Herr Flick doing in the background? Yeah, so that's my memory of it, and we were like a little sideshow. But how perfect that we were in, guess what, a tent. I mean, it was all meant to be.
It was brilliant, and the weather was beautiful, and we sat in these armchairs by the main entrance to Elstree, because the tent was right by the main entrance. And we sat, when we weren't filming, sat in these armchairs for like 6 days. It was bloody fantastic, and the set inside the tent was brilliant. I think Alan was probably delighted, actually, because it enabled him to break away from the 5-camera. They did have multi-camera.
That's a very good point, because we sort of went from single cam out in the you know, the location stuff, and then we were going to be back in the studio with the so that was I've never really thought about it like that. I just remember that portcullis landing in Otis's head.
I remember.
And he'd straight on to his agent saying, I think we should I think there's a little insurance problem going on here. You know?
Compo here. There's some compo.
There were wonderful wooden floors, real wooden floors, which of course you wouldn't have had if you'd been in TV Centre, would you? It would have been painted. And the sound of the wooden floors, I remember that as being wonderful.
And the corridors, the long set of the tunnels, you know, they built them in this tent. And then he was shooting it handheld single camera.
Much better.
In the studio, you wouldn't have been able to do that.
Exactly.
You know, I bet. I mean, I imagine he was cacking himself, because it was only his second job as a director. And
was it?
Imagine,
Wow. I didn't realise that.
He'd done a Casualty, I think, before, because I knew. Because when we did the first series of Lovejoy in '85, Alan was on a couple of episodes as a first AM, as a first assistant. So I knew him a bit, which is how I got in it, I think. Because when certainly when JNT would have put me forward, Alan would have known me. And
interesting.
So I think he'd gone through, because at that time, you used to have to, it took about 11 years on average to go from joining the BBC as a relief floor assistant to becoming either a director or a producer. And you had to go through third assistant, first assistant, second assistant, location manager, you know, and that took about 10 years. So he'd gone through that process, Alan, and then he chose to go into directing, and I think he'd done a Casualty and then got this. So it was a good gig. And as I say, because we were in the tent, it enabled him to be a bit more.
But so as life tends to work out in its wonderfully chaotic way, all that conventional procedural longitudinal training and direction led him to somewhere which nobody could possibly have legislated for.
Exactly.
Hooray! Which is exactly how JNT operated. You know, that was his whole ethos: expect the unexpected, and be honest.
Yeah.
Sue Shearman. Now then, Sue. Hello, Sue. Sue worked on Doctor Who. She's got a prolific career in production. I met her last year. Thank you so much, Sue. Who says, for TV, if in doubt, do nout. On stage, if in doubt, shout.
Okay.
We're not sure on that one.
We're not sure on that one.
No, it's a nice little rhyme, Sue. I mean, and it does have some bearing on the gibberish we've been spouting. Yeah. So thank you for bringing it into a slightly more manageable piece.
Yeah. Could I ask you, somebody you just mentioned there? Now then, with Greatest Show in the Galaxy, it did apparently come perilously close to cancellation because of the asbestos problem, and the person credited with saving it is John Nathan Turner. So when I say John Nathan Turner, what would your response be? Because he's an interesting figure in the world of Doctor Who. What was the man actually really like?
He was bloody lovely. He was a great guy. He was funny. He was witty. He was supportive. He was what I would call a proper producer. Yeah,
he was absolutely. I couldn't concur more. I mean, I just played him in an audio thing, another thing through AUK. I mean, I tried to sort of not camp it up too much, kind of respect his ethos and his truth, because he was, I think, first and foremost, he cared desperately about what he was doing, and he ruffled a few feathers because his office was not brown and beige; it was sort of pink and orange, and he did things his own way, but always, very true.
Yeah, and what I mean by a real producer was that in the 60s, 70s, the job of a producer was to protect the production from the corporation.
Right.
So the job of the producer was to hire the director, the writers and actors, then help them to make the show and to keep the corporation at bay. Over our careers, over the last 40 years, that has changed completely, so that a modern producer's job is to assert the corporation over the production. So there's been a complete change, and that change was happening in the 80s. It had started and was starting to happen, and John was very much an old time producer whose attitude was, my job is to protect Alan and the actors and everyone else from the suits. So I'm sure that made him I'm sure that affected his career prospects.
I think also, he, as I recall, I mean, certainly I didn't audition for that part. So I think Alan would have preferred to audition me, but JNT selected, because it was this sort of anniversary episode, he wanted to get people in who he liked, who he had admired for various reasons, more than just as actors. So, and people who he felt would actually gel and get on really well together. And he sure as fuck got that right. I mean, that was so spot on. And I think we were all, it was a bit of a revelation to us. We're going, well, I've never met you before, or Dee, or pretty well anybody in that show. But we just found this wavelength, which was very, very, very something.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was wonderful.
What was Sophie and Sylvester like to work with? Asks Liz. So have you got any memories about Sophie and Sylvester in particular?
Well, just that it felt like we'd been working with them all the time. Very, very quickly. There was a sense of a group of actors very, very quickly, because by the time we were only in Weymouth for 4 days or something, and by the time we came away, there was this real strong sense of friendship, which that can happen sometimes with guest artists, but the stars are sometimes separate. But in this case, that wasn't the case. Both Sylvester and Sophie, absolutely. So it was very, very welcoming, very, very supportive, and they behaved as if these were the only episodes they were doing, if you know what I mean. That it wasn't in any sense. You didn't get any sense that we were just passing through.
It was what I always call high talent, low ego. You know.
Yeah.
Which is the best way. You know, if you get one slightly abrasive ego in a company, someone has maybe got an axe to grind, or you know, a bit of jealousy. I don't know. It could be anything. It can really upset the apple cart, and I think that's something that JNT, he was very aware of who he was putting into the mix with Sophie and with our Sylvester.
You know, and that group included Peggy Mount and TP McKenna.
Oh yeah, TP McKenna, yay!
And we were just like pals. It's like, it was extraordinary. We're all sitting there laughing and joking, taking the piss. It was fantastic. Amazing. And
everyone had all these different sort of careers, you know. Peggy Mount doing like sitcom, and she had a reputation for being a bit difficult and awkward. Hello, I don't think so. No. That wasn't the person I met.
No.
Yeah, absolutely delightful.
Delightful.
Did it in any way? Because of course, Doctor Who. This was season 25 for the show, and season 26 of its last. Did it feel like a show that was on borrowed time? Because I don't get that impression either from the programs or whenever I speak to people who made it. It feels like there's a confidence in the show around this time, and it strikes me as an appalling mistake by the BBC what they did, and I've never quite understood that. But did it feel like a show that was confident, I suppose?
But it certainly did with JNT in the helm, because he was absolutely committed to it, and you know, he took it seriously without being serious. You know, he loved the show, and so I think in the general culture around it, there was a feeling that its day had passed. It wasn't cool. Doctor Who wasn't cool by then. You know, you did.
Yeah, I mean, and the axe was out. You know, I mean, they were looking for things to axe. I mean, when I was doing quite a lot of leading stuff in the 70s and 80s, I was lucky enough to do a few Jackanories, you know, read the Jackanory story in its early incarnation. That was, again, what else can we, you know, Doctor Who, they've all come back because they were always meant to come back. But it was almost like you've served your time. Mind you, we have to be aware of the fact that around things like Narnia and, you know, Lord of the Rings and Doctor Who and all these things, the advent of digital, I mean, frustrating though it is in some areas of the world, it obviously opened up a whole bunch of possibilities in terms of particularly sci-fi. So, you know, we were still making, well, what we were making, you know, and it was, but it's miraculous really to me. I mean, I did the voice of Frodo in the Lord of the Rings animated movie, and you know, after all these years and all the things that one's done, the things that come back to haunt me are being Frodo in the Lord of the Rings, you know, and being absolutely fucking terrified as Bellboy, you know. Who would have thought it? But that's the way the business works, you know. You put yourself out there, you stand on the street corner, you know, the whore that you are, and you say, who wants my services? And you never know what's going to happen.
I mean, I think there's also a more general discrepancy between media executives and the audience based around the word cool. So, for example, Lovejoy was never ever cool. In fact, it was sort of despised in the industry.
Yeah, but that was Ian's fault, and I won't make you tell those stories. But I know. I mean, look, I know Ian really well, but he's a lovely dude.
but those shows that get, 15, 20 million viewers but aren't cool, there's always a potential to get them axed, because a lot of it's a lot about what are you doing. Oh, well, I'm doing. When it came back, and I think this was what's his face's great trick when he brought Doctor Who back, was he made it cool, and it has still maintained that to this day, that it is cool as a show, and I think that was a great trick to bring it back.
Yeah, but none of it has ever been as cool, because I'm so old. I saw the very first episode at Jason and Francis Bowyer's house in Chiswick, because they had a telly and we didn't. And although I'd been on the telly, we didn't have a telly. So we went round there and we'd all heard about it. How did we hear about it? We didn't have phones. Everyone's going like, oh, this new thing coming out. We were terrified 2 days before it was even shown. These little boys all going, ha, ha, ha. And that was exactly what we did. That waspish, difficult, nasty kind of wizard who was like, William Hartnell. He wasn't a nice guy. He wasn't a sexy Doctor Who. There was no sex involved at all.
No.
And then she goes back to where she should live, and the school teacher goes looking for her, and there's a police box. And I remember that just sending like cold rushes through my body. And then that music, that was it. From that moment on, it was, that's how it all began.
We were talking about that. You and me are of the generation who were the right age when it started. And I literally have very vivid memories, literally, of hiding behind the sofa. And that it was huge in my consciousness, and the music, and we're all singing the music all the time. It was huge. It was a huge cultural moment.
But and to go back to your question about did it feel like it was coming to the end? I mean, to be honest, when that job came up, I was delighted to do it. It was a lovely thing, and JNT and all that. But I wasn't thinking like somebody would now, wow, I'm doing a Doctor Who story, full party, playing a main role. It just felt like kind of like another gig for one of the BBC's flagship shows that's going through a bit of a crisis.
Right, I see. Well, listen, we are very nearly out of time. However, Erica did say one thing, which I must ask you about, which is a musical version of The Greatest Show in the Galaxy. Does that
no. It's a sequel to The Show in the Galaxy called The Children of the Circus.
Right.
Which we've just recently recorded, including all the original members of the cast who are still alive. And Toya Wilcox, who's a neighbour of mine, came in to sing a song. And the idea was Barnaby Eaton Jones, who published my book, he said, which is not bad, and he said, how about I get my friend Kenton Hall to write a sequel to The Greatest Show in the Galaxy as an audio musical play based around your songs, okay? Because he's a fan of my songs. And I said, that is the most ridiculous idea I've ever heard in my life. Fast forward in the tradition of mad Doctor Who reunions, and there we all are in a studio, Ian in Cheltenham, this was, Ian, Sophie, Sylvester did his stuff remotely, Chris did his stuff remotely, Jan Samarco came back in, as I was saying, took a bit of persuasion, but I mean, to get us all back into that, it's available through AUK, I'm told, and I think, so anyway, whether it's brilliant or not, I really don't know, but it's certainly fascinating, and the soundscape of it is great, and so there you go.
Well, listen, I mean, it's well, I will get hold of that because I have got your performance as JNT, and I think that's a brilliant listen. So I will get that as well. But I would just like to say thank you, because you were in a production that meant an awful lot to me when I was a 12-year-old. A 12-year-old with divorcing parents, and that took me somewhere else, which you've probably heard from a lot of people, that sort of thing. But so thank you for that.
You say through divorcing parents.
Yes, yeah.
No, I've been there. I was 15 when it happened to me, but right. I do understand, you know, that. Yeah, sometimes
that's very young to be married, Chris.
Oh no, that's my life. Yeah. But look, hey, look. This is interesting. Look.
Oh.
That's how I first got employed by the BBC.
Yeah.
Wow.
And when I grew up, I was Ian McKellen. He was 26. Still playing straight. And
my girlfriend at university, a woman from East Sheen called Liz Parker, knew you, and I'd heard so much about the bloody Guard brothers by the time I graduated. I thought, bloody hell, I'm sick of hearing about these pair. But yeah, it was a pleasure to actually meet you in the end. It was wonderful.
Well, that's very nice of you to say that. I mean, because we've gone different routes and ways now. I mean, Dom's not even in the business, you know, but yeah, no, I mean, life takes us in all sorts of funny old routes, doesn't it? But people ask me about my acting career, and I say, well, I peaked at 12, and I do actually think that's true, because I didn't think about it, I just did it, you know. Yeah. And everyone loved me. They said, "Oh, you're so good," you know. And they're like, "Okay." And then I went back. Go on.
Oh, this is going to be to tell us that we're right out of time, isn't it? We are, aren't we, Erica?
I was just in the middle of reading this book.
Oh, yes.
Oh, right, yeah.
Christopher Guard book.
Yeah, very good book.
Well, you know, the reason it's good, if it is good at all, is because I give more copy space to my mother's psychotic Jack Russell dog than I do to the likes of Elizabeth Taylor. In fact, Jeeves has a whole chapter to himself. That was his name, and he was seriously unpleasant. So if you want to laugh, buy it just for Jeeves.
I've got some copies as well, so if anyone wants to buy it, message me, and I'll make sure Chris knows about that. So
you can stand on the corner of my street anytime, Eric.
Well, selling books. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you so much for talking to us. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
I've just got in from work, so thank you so much for
I wish you told me it was live, because I had no bloody idea.
Well, you know, I like to keep you in suspense and surprise, Chris.
Yes, you witch. All right.
Lovely. Thank you both very much indeed.
Take care of yourself, gentlemen. Yeah. I'll give you a text later.
Cheers. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I didn't mean to cut him off for quite the way that I did. That was apologies, Chris. That was a slip of the finger. Sorry, my bad.
That was lovely. That was a great cab. I enjoyed that. That was lovely.
So there's Chris's book anyway. If anyone wants to buy that, there we go.
I picked that up at last year's convention, and it's a brilliant read. And talking of conventions, we should just say that we do have a convention that is upcoming, don't we? Which is on, I've got written down June the 1st. That's wrong, isn't it? July?
June the 1st? No, we're June the 1st this year.
June the 1st. I've been thinking July. I better get my skates on and start doing some research, because we've got coming to us on the Wirral, on our little peninsula, we have the following people so far, and this is not by any means everyone. Sylvester McCoy is joining us. Fraser Hines will be joining us. Wendy Padbury will be with us. I'm very excited about that one. And also Sophie Aldred will be with us as well. There she is. Yeah. And so will another gentleman who we're going to be talking to in about 20 minutes or so. Yeah. There he is. That's Colin Spall.
That looks like I've done a lot of prep. That's just still there from when we did the launch thing about 3 or 4 months ago.
All that work was from Andy Jolly, who is watching and lurking, but is too scared to come online.
Right. No, that was lovely. I love that, getting the stills up there. That's lovely. So yeah.
Thank my laziness in leaving them up there for last
better. Your cold team's better, Paul.
Oh, I'm invigorated, partly by the Lemsip that I knocked back just beforehand. Give me another hour, and that's it. You've had your lot. But and talking to two people who were in a piece of drama that genuinely did mean an awful lot to me, and I still think that Bellboy's death, the direction, the performances, the music, it all comes together, and that's just for me. That's a beautiful little piece of television. So it was lovely to have a chat with them. Liz Whitmore says it's my first Who on the Wirral, but Sophie told me it's a lovely, friendly event. It is, isn't it?
It
is. It's now a good time to play the video, which was sent to me via WhatsApp, so I can't guarantee its quality.
Right.
Well, everyone. The thing is, I think it's time we announced a new guest. So we've got a new guest. It's a returning guest. They have been to us before, but just watch this video and you'll find out. Go.
Where do we begin with this? Okay, so that's the video you sent me earlier on today, which had the file name Michael Troughton.
Did it?
Yes, it
Try
did.
the one now I've put in the WhatsApp group.
That would be quite difficult to get that on the computer in before the Colin Spall interview. So
well, that's good. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll
hello, what's happened? I just went for a wee.
Long or short version?
It was quite a long wee, but yes.
No, all right. It's Erica's fault.
It is my. Well, Andy should be lurking. I wonder if Andy can do. Okay, well let's do the still. Can we do a still? If I
no, there's no stills.
Hang on. Well, I will find something. Just put the Wicked Witch of the West up. That was the one I was using today. Hang on a minute.
I've got many questions about that Doctor Who Carry On video. How did that come about?
Well, ask away. Andy did that as a lockdown challenge. He showed me it today, and I said, "Oh, isn't that good?" And then I've sent it to
me to upload here, and then you sent me a message with the videos on saying wrong video.
Wrong video.
Okay. Do we have the right video for our guest? We haven't.
I think we'll have it. It will be on later at some point because there's no way I'm going to be able to download that in time and get it on the video. So we'll have to pencil it in for the end of Colin's Ball.
Right. Okay.
So I think we're going to wrap this up. We're going to say stay on the page because you're getting a notification when the next interview is ready to go. So we will say goodbye for now. Go and find the Colin's Ball interview bit, and we'll see you over there presently. So that is the end for this. A fitting end to a great hour of interviewing by a technical balls up. But when you think back on tonight, mentally erased these last 4 minutes, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. See you soon on the next video for the interview with Colin Spall.